to the best of all time. I mean, I think you really appreciate not only what they do on the field from a quarterback position, but really their contributions to the game of football, and then on top of that, what they do as men outside of the game of football. But I mean, this is if you wanted to study how to play quarterback, then you need to watch that game Sunday night.
All right, Cece. Well, what's the key to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers upsetting Tom Brady and the Patriots?
Well, I think Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy, they're going to have to be very aggressive, because every time that, and I had to go back to some of the matchups that I listen to Belichick's press conferences, because a lot of times he doesn't tell you anything. But 5% of the time, Sarah, he tells you little tidbits of what he really, and when a player is great, I don't care if it's a punter, place kicker, man, he goes out of his way to explain to the general public, because really the key to Belichick in a press conference, you have to ask him a really football-related question about the upcoming game. And they asked him about Aaron Rodgers and what he thought. And, I mean, he went on and on as one of the greatest quarterbacks. And he said, I faced a lot of greats, but he's one of the greatest challenges that I've ever faced. So in doing that, I go back to some other games that he coached against great players. Most recently, Peyton Manning. And he's always had a very, very aggressive attitude, not as far as defensively how he's going to go after these guys, but how he's going to play offense with Tom Brady. He will go for it more on fourth down. So I'm saying that to say this. McCarthy's got to be extra aggressive, because we know that New England's going to be aggressive. So when you go against them, you can't play conservative. You can't play scared. People will talk about, oh, man, you can't turn the ball over. Well, let me tell you what you got to do. You can't not take chances. Right. And you got to try to throw the ball down the field. You got to try to make big plays. But the most important thing has to be scoring in the red zone. When Green Bay gets in the red zone, because they will, it's easy to move the ball between the 20s on the Pats year after year. But where are they excellent? That's in red zone defense, and the Pats have to be able to get 7. So if they are able to get in the red zone 4 times, they got to come away with at least 4 touchdowns.
I think this game actually sets up relatively well for the Packers, as well as a game in New England could set up in this regard. We don't know what Gronk's status is. I would be surprised if Sony Michel plays. He's been limited in practice all week, and this year the Pats have had 3 great offensive games. All of those games were great Sony Michel games. When they've been one-dimensional, when they have not had a dominant or reliable rushing attack, they haven't cracked 30 points. Now, there's the game where they scored 38 against the Bears, but 2 of those were special teams touchdowns. Yeah,
so offensively,
they've been in the mid-20s. Additionally, you know what I think Green Bay can look to? They don't have to look back to years back of film. Monday night. The Bills did a good job defensively against New England. Yes. Now, the Bills' offense is a disaster, so they weren't able to take advantage of doing a good job. But the Pats didn't score a touchdown through 3 quarters. The Bills did a good job of keeping them out of the end zone when they got to the red zone. The Pats kicked 2 25-yard field goals in that game. That means they were inside the 10 and couldn't score. So I do think there is a template that Green Bay can take from their own success last week against a potent offense in the Rams, from their own success last week offensively against a defense that's better than New England's, and from the fact that if New England doesn't have the hammer of Sony Michel, we have seen this year where Brady will turn the ball over, that their offense is not quite as deadly as it's been in years past.
What about with Gronk? You mentioned we don't know if Gronk is going to play. He didn't practice yesterday. How does that change the matchup if he's not on the field?
Well, one thing's going to change is the Sony Michel Gronk absent is huge for their offense. Gronk would probably be their second best offensive lineman if he was just an offensive lineman. Now, with some injuries, his blocking hadn't been as good as it's been in years past, but he is still a great pass protector, great in the run game. So now you take him and Sony Michel, who's going to be their main runner? James White has not been a featured running back, not in high school, not in college. So I just believe that the combination of both these players potentially be out, it really affects Tom where he wants to go to. And to me, Gronk has not been able to, even if he plays, he hasn't played to the level where I need to double team him. Yeah. So for me, I'm going to give him single coverage. So even if he does play in the game, he hadn't been as effective. He hadn't been a deep threat. Did come up with the big pass play, great spectacular catch down the sideline in last week's game in Buffalo. But that's where I'm going to take my chance. They do miss Gronk. He's a huge part of their running game, and he's their best wide receiver.
So here's something that, whether Gronk plays or not, that I think Green Bay has to focus on. This shocked me when I saw it this morning. The Patriots have committed the 7th most turnovers in football this year. 13 turnovers. Here are the only teams in the league who've committed more turnovers than the Patriots. Tell me what they all have in common. Tampa, Buffalo, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Arizona, and the Jets. All of those teams either have a disaster at quarterback or a rookie at quarterback. The Patriots are next on that turnover list. That is so rare for them. One of the reasons they have had this sustained level of success is every year they do a great job of taking care of the football. You remember post-Deflategate, we saw, oh wait, they never fumble the football. Like, in addition to Brady not throwing too many interceptions. So I think this is a game that Green Bay has to win the turnover battle. I think this is a game that, to your point, they have to get 7 every time they're down in the red zone. But the other thing is, and we don't lead with this commentary because it's the obvious commentary, it's what everyone's going to say, Aaron Rodgers got to be great. How does Green Bay beat good teams? Aaron Rodgers has to be great. There's been one game in the last year, that 365 days, that the Packers have had a running back go for 100 yards. Once. Prior to last week, their season high for one player was 65 yards. Last week, they had an 86-yard rusher. Like, you know, for the Packers offense to be able to score with New England, they're going to have to do it through the air with Aaron Rodgers.
Cece, put in perspective, with that being said, I know they're not on the field at the same time, but put into perspective this game, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, what it means to a player understanding just how special it is with this matchup.
Oh, they know. Because Aaron has an arrogance about him, and we see it all the time. Tom Brady realized he's the great, but realized his cement is still wet. But even in his interview earlier in the week, he said Aaron Rodgers' play at quarterback has even inspired him. So he's just said, just talking to a lot of quarterbacks, they're inspired by watching Aaron Rodgers play. And me being the greatest quarterback that there is, he's one of the guys that I look to who inspires me to play better, because he doesn't have the physical gifts, but he operates at quarterback as high as levels we've seen. So I know Tom Brady takes pride in everything he does, but I can guarantee he knows this is very rare. Might be the last time he ever sees Aaron Rodgers. And I know the last time Tom Brady, he'd like to leave a mark. He talked about that a lot with Peyton Manning. He had a lot of matchups with Peyton Manning. So I believe Tom has a lot of personal pride in what he's doing, and this will be an extra special Sunday even for Brady.
We almost got to see these two in a Super Bowl. The Pats-Seahawks Super Bowl is almost the Pats-Packers Super Bowl. Packers had a big lead late, onside kick, overtime loss ends up depriving us of that opportunity. Because they're in opposite conferences, they only play once every 4 years. Since Rodgers become the starter, this would be the 3rd time they played. But the 15-1 season for Green Bay, the one game Aaron Rodgers missed was the one game they were supposed to play the Patriots. So this will be, unless they play in the Super Bowl in the next couple of years, the last time these two guys ever play. I don't care what Brady says. He's not playing 4 more years.
Right, absolutely.
This will be the last time we see these two guys play. And both of them, I'm sure, deep down, don't love the comparison to the other guy. Like, Brady can say all these things, but I'm sure deep down, when he's talking to Giselle, when he's talking to his closest friends, man, I've been to 8 Super Bowls. Does this guy have 8 playoff wins? Like, I'm sure that's Brady's feeling, and I'm sure Rodgers deep down's like, do you guys watch the games? Come on. Who's better? So do you watch the games? Like, give me a break. And so in that regard, they're obviously not going to be able to, it's not a safety against a quarterback or a D-end against a quarterback. They're not going to be able to go up against each other in that regard. But for both of these guys who carry themselves with a very deserved ego and confidence, this is as big of a regular season matchup as there can be.
Yeah. All right. Coming up, it's going to be fun.